guys know that I recently did a whole bunch of maintenance to my supercharged Mustang, but there's more to do. So I'm pretty sure I did a diff change or a diff oil change or whatever you want to call it, diff fluid. But today we're going to be changing out my brake pads because I am literally riding on no brake pads whatsoever. I let it get really bad. So that's on me. We need to do our standard maintenance. So today we're gonna go ahead and throw these on. You all are aware that I'm running the Bear drag brakes. So today we're gonna be putting in those Bear street compound pads. I did that upgrade over 6 months ago, you know, to cut off some rotational mass and to do some weight reduction because unsprung weight makes the biggest difference with these cars. So we upgraded both the rotor and the caliper. We went down in size to save weight. Let's go ahead and pop off this wheel. I'm pretty sure that right now I'm on the race compound. So that explains why I went through the pads in like, I don't know, 5,000 to 10,000 miles. Got some brand new pads here. I hope I ordered the correct ones. Looks like it. We'll see in just a second. But yeah, the sport compound is for the street. I'm gonna start with cracking off this side. I forgot to break the lugs on the other. Oops. All right, pop that guy off. Put it to the side. And let's see how these brake pads look. Oh, yeah. That's really bad. Really see how little pad is left on the back side. So, once again, don't ever do this. Don't let your car get this low on pads. You know, do your maintenance, fellas. Do your maintenance. Now I'm gonna go ahead and remove the caliper as instructed to do so. So we're gonna be using this right here. Never mind now. Those have a very heavy torque spec, so I just had to break it off by hand. So now that I just pulled this bolt out, the top one, I'm 99% confident that this guy should slide off. But we might need that piston compressing tool that I mentioned earlier. Yeah, to compress the piston. Actually, I think my caliper is seized because it doesn't want to come off whatsoever. The compression tool is for when you take the pads out, you need to move the piston back. But the pistons should not be squeezing like this when the brakes aren't engaged, apparently. And according to my research, so I literally cannot get this pad off. Like, it does not want to move off, even though I loosened all the bolts to it. So I have no clue what I'm gonna do. And this is the wear that I was talking about on the rotor. So you can see that is not normal. That is like shaved metal. I definitely think the piston's in here seized and the caliper is just locking on to the rotor and destroying it.
A few moments later.
So apparently if I go ahead and loosen up the bleeder cap, which is at the top of the caliper, we can get those pistons to retract. Supposedly, I don't know if it's gonna work, but I'm gonna go grab the right socket for it and do it. Let's see if loosening up that bleeder valve is gonna make the piston move. So I can't really see right now. Yeah, I might have to check in a second, but this is loose now. And the piston didn't move whatsoever. So I guess we're gonna have to use a C-clamp tool. Try and push these out. That's the only alternative I'm trying to think of right now. You all can tell, now the pad should completely pop out. And what I had to do was compress the piston with a flathead. Right, Carson? That's definitely how you're supposed to do it, right?
Absolutely
See,
not.
It makes sense now. See, that didn't make sense. The only way that it comes out is through the middle. Yeah. So you do have to take the caliper off. Definitely know that they make a caliper compression tool, so you should use that to compress the pistons. Don't do what I did with a flathead, but it worked. So we pushed those pistons out. These popped out. These are my pads from before, so I thought they were a lot worse than they actually are. They aren't too bad. You can see they still have some life left to them. I had to go and pick up a C-clamp to fully compress the pistons, but now they're all pushed in, so I should be able to replace my little metal brackets that go inside, or like below and above the pads where they go. So yeah, definitely needed this tool that was monumental in compressing the pistons all the way. C-clamp, I wouldn't have been able to remove that metal bracket because the piston was pushing up on it. So you definitely need it for the clearance, and here is the old one. Well, I replaced all of them, but here's one of the old ones. Popped it out, it's caked in dust. Just for comparative purpose, the old pad is on the bottom, the new one is on the top. You can see how much of it I shaved off by daily driving on the race compound. You can really see the difference. So once again, brand new pad on the right, the old one is on the left. Yeah, I took off a decent amount. I'm kind of an idiot. I realized that I didn't use the C-clamp correctly, but now that I'm using it the right way, it's a lot easier and it's not scratching up my caliper paint. So yeah, it is my first time owning this tool. I mean, I didn't own one previously. I just got it for this job, so I guess you gotta learn one way or another. Go ahead and throw some grease on my new pad, and then I'll go ahead and put it in. That should be a good enough amount, maybe a little bit too much. This guy will drop in exactly like this with the friction surface facing the rotor, so yeah. Hopefully the brackets don't give me a tough time. Say that the other side didn't want to click into the bracket. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So for some reason, I don't know why it doesn't want to, but I think I'm just gonna use the C-clamp to pull it in. I clamped it down with the C-clamp, and it did push it in a good bit, but now I'm trying to do it a little bit more by hand, and as you can see, it did move in a little bit, just the slightest bit more. Now the torque spec for both of these bolts that hold the caliper to the rotor is 85 foot-pounds, so it's a decent amount. Man, this is gonna be a pain to get on. 85 foot-pound on both of those guys now.
The next day.
How I had the brake pads before was no bueno because, as you guys recall, I had to shove them in. There wasn't any play whatsoever, and that's not good. So the brake pads actually should be floating inside of the channel, and they shouldn't be locked in one position, because basically what happens when I press on the brake and the pistons come out, the brake pad is gonna basically get closer to the rotor and then stay there if there's no wiggle room at all. So we need to loosen those up, and we're gonna have to use the Dremel in order to do that. I have it right here. I already did one of the brake pads, but we're gonna grind out the edges of the pad until it slides in there and has play. I'll show you guys what I mean by play. Basically, I'll be able to shove it back and forth. Just grinding down the edges that make contact with the metal brackets inside of the caliper. Kind of like this. I'm just slowly grinding down the pads until they slide in there freely. So, shouldn't be bound up like I was explaining before. You can see some of that material that I took off on the edges that make contact, so it should go in a lot easier. I actually watched Eric the car guy. Big shout out to him for giving me this tutorial, because I was curious to see if the pad should be this difficult to get in. Nonetheless though, this is still too difficult for them to move around, so it needs to be looser than this. I have to put some force to pry them off, but notice how now they actually slide out without prying with a screwdriver. Now Eric the car guy considers this a good amount of play, so I'm easily moving the pad back and forth. Now they shouldn't bind and drag anymore. I'll put a little bit of grease on the corners and back again, and then we'll slide them in. I never thought it would take that much machining to fit or properly fit a brake pad in the bare caliper, but I learned something extremely valuable. It's a lesson, and what can I say? You all are learning along with me. Devin participated on the second one, so he did it all by himself, right?
The whole job.
Cap!
It's done.
So I think we're gonna leave the bleeding the brakes process for a different video, but what I'm gonna go ahead and do is break them in, because there is a specific bedding procedure, basically to make sure that the pads are broken in and making contact with the rotor in the proper way. I don't really know how to explain it, but as you know, a pad is composed of a friction surface. You need to heat it up and get it through heat cycles so it's working optimally according to Bear. So as a part of this break-in procedure, it's basically just a whole bunch of hard braking. You all will see. Now we need to do 8 heavy stops, so we'll start with this one right now. Ready? There we go. Nah, I want to see the rotors glowing. If the rotors aren't glowing, then I didn't break them in properly. Hey Anthony, we've got 6 more of those to do. Hopefully I don't get rear-ended on one of those 6 more. Overall, that was kind of sketch, because every time I was braking, I was like bracing super hard, because you feel it. I mean, your whole body flies forward, and then on top of that, I was scared someone was just gonna ram into me. That's pretty much gonna do it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please remember to comment, like, and subscribe, and stay tuned for when we bleed all of these brakes. I'm gonna drop a quick little tutorial on that.